Guys, I promise you that I don't like to just talk junk about LeBron James, even though I make a lot of videos about him. But the reason why I do it is because with great power comes great responsibility, which means that I have to bring great criticism over his actions, because he's trying to come from a place where I do legitimately believe he's trying to help, but his strategy is off, right? And you have so many great resources that I truly feel like he is wasting that could really go to actually helping people, but really he's just helping the Democrat Party. He's a pawn. But before we get into that, my name is Greg Foreman, and you're watching a Black Conservative Perspective. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to my videos. You can follow me on Twitter at GForemanBCP. And most importantly, share a Black Conservative Perspective, aka a liberal's worst nightmare. Let's get it. All right, so LeBron James and Michael Bloomberg are apparently trying to pay the fines and court costs for felons in Florida so that they can vote in this next upcoming election. So let's take a look at some of the key facts here. In 2018, Florida voters passed an amendment that made it possible for more than 1.4 million people convicted of felonies across the state to vote, except those convicted of murder or sex charges. But the Republican-controlled state legislature subsequently required they first pay any fines or fees owed to the state. Again, some people might look at this and be like, without a jail, they should be able to vote. And it's like, a part of doing a crime, a part of putting yourself in debt to society, you have to not only do your time, but you have to pay back your debt. Once you pay back your debt, then all your rights are restored. I'm 100% for rights being restored to felons and people who've 100% paid their debt back to society. It costs money. Accordingly, if you're a felon, then you need to pay your debt back to society for us having to administrate this. Again, it's simple stuff, guys. A University of Florida study found that almost 775,000 people convicted of felonies in Florida still owe money from their conviction, and many do not have the financial resources to pay the fine. Bloomberg's initiative, which was also financed by $5 million from the Florida's Rights Restoration Coalition, will assist Black and Latino voters who are already registered to vote and have debts of less than $1,500. Bloomberg's team says the data shows most Black voters in Florida are a unique universe, unlike any other voting bloc, where the Democrat support rate tends to be very high. While Biden has struggled to win the support of Cuban American voters in Florida, Bloomberg's team says the Democratic nominee is winning other Hispanic groups by a margin of 3-1. All right, so that's Bloomberg. Let's talk about what LeBron James is doing for 1 second. LeBron James and the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition are actively sending text messages to residents for the purpose of forwarding them to convicted felons, Outkick has learned. LeBron and the group are offering to pay fines and fees so felons can vote in the upcoming presidential election for Joe Biden, of course. And here's a screenshot from Outkick about one of these text messages that LeBron James is sending out. In June, LeBron launched a group, More Than a Vote, to fight Black voter suppression and excite minority voters across the nation. In another tweet with hashtag More Than a Vote, LeBron tweeted, "This is systemic racism and oppression." Just yesterday, LeBron was quoted in a Daily Wire story saying Black people in the community don't believe that their vote matters. The text and promotions for this cause don't specify what happens if an interested felon is known to support President Donald Trump or oppose the Chinese Communist Party. Maybe a sorry, we met our budget response from the LeBron James team. So honestly, guys, I don't even know if this is really even legal or not. There's a U.S. code law that talks about this type of stuff, and I'm going to share it with you guys right here. 18 U.S. Code 597, expenditures to influence voting. Whoever makes or offers to make an expenditure to any person either to vote or withhold his vote or to vote for or against any candidate, and whoever solicits, accepts, or receives any expenditure in consideration of his vote or withholding of his vote shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both, and if the violation was willful, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both. All right, guys. So again, I'm not sure if this applies to, direct cash payments to vote or paying off a fine to vote. I'm not sure exactly how this applies. So somebody with more, legal background than me can help me, understand how this actually works. So I'm not sure if it's actually legal or not, but I'm going to assume that it is. And my biggest problem with this is that this is just another example of how the priorities of our so-called leaders are out of line. They're out of line. They want you to go to the polls to vote Democrat. They don't want you to go to vote just to vote, to exercise your right to vote. They want you to go to exercise your right to vote Democrat. Because I guarantee you, if I got that message and I was like, you know what, I kind of want to vote for Donald Trump, they'd be like, all right, well, sorry, we don't have any money. Right? That's exactly what would happen. And my question is that Bloomberg and LeBron James are super rich. They have almost an unlimited amount of money, especially Bloomberg. Why is it that you guys don't focus on helping these felons get jobs? Why don't you help them become productive and positive members for society? It is very hard for them to do that. And I do understand that the court system and paying court fees and court costs, helps contribute to that. However, again, it costs taxpayers money to administrate this type of stuff. So yes, they have to pay this stuff. So I don't necessarily have a problem with them paying the fine. I just have a problem with them doing it in exchange for them to vote. They're not following up with these felons after they vote. What happens next after that? Does the Democrat Party magically cure everything? Do these felons' lives magically become better? Or do they just end up back in the system where they're going to incur more debt on society? What happens after the vote is done? Do you follow up with these people? Are you going to help them get a job? Because LeBron James, you can employ these people. Bloomberg, you can employ these people. Why don't you employ these people? Why don't you put your money in a place where you're going to help these people become productive members of society? Because you're trying to sit here and act like you care about them. And you're trying to frame the Republican Party as, oh, they're just trying to hold them down and keep them down, and we trying to help them come up. And it's like, no, you're not. You're only trying to help the Democrat. But again, all this sounds good on paper. It's standard Democrat stuff. It all sounds good on paper. Oh man, LeBron James is helping felons vote. LeBron James is such a freedom fighter. He's doing so much good for the community. LeBron James is the modern day Muhammad Ali. But really, I'm convinced LeBron James is just gaining political will for the Democrats under the guise of trying to fight systemic racism that the Democrats have contributed to, by the way, significantly, right? Which is probably the reason why a lot of these people were locked up in the first place. He's using that to try to gain political will with the Democrat Party, because after he's done with his basketball career, it is very clear that he wants to run. He wants to run for governor. He wants to run for president, Senate, something. LeBron James wants to be a politician. And that's what this is all about. This ain't about helping black folks. This ain't about helping Hispanic folks. This ain't about helping poor folks. Because if it was about helping them, he would help them get jobs so they could pay off the fines themselves. They can learn some personal responsibility. That stuff is important, guys. When you're trying to help felons out, when you're trying to help people get their place back in society, you have to help change their habits that got them in that position in the first place. If you don't change those core habits, I don't care who you vote for, nothing is going to change for them. If you really care about these people, you would invest in changing the behaviors that got them in the system in the first place. That's what you would invest in. You would invest giving them job interview skills. I don't know, maybe set up a coding academy so these people can learn how to code. Again, a lot of these guys are young guys who are more than capable enough of learning new skills. Why don't you set up some type of trade school where you pay for their tuition to go to a trade school or something? Pay for them to obtain a hard skill that's going to immediately result in a higher paying salary, or something in which they can take that hard skill and start their own business. Something in which their felony background isn't necessarily going to hinder them from coming up in society. Or better yet, after they get these skills, right, these hard skills, why don't you pay for them to start their own business? Give them some seed money. Give them a low interest loan. Help them actually become productive members of society. Voting is not the only thing that helps you become a productive member of society, especially when you're talking about just voting Democrat. And that's my biggest problem with people like LeBron James. Again, I believe he has good intentions. I really do. But his money is being used in a way that is not helping. He might as well just donate his money directly to the Democrats. Just give your money directly to Joe Biden, LeBron. Stop trying to hide behind this facade of, I'm trying to fight systemic racism, because no, you're not. Because if you was trying to fight systemic racism, you would stop trying to rely on the so-called racist system in the first place. That's what kills me about all these people that claim to be fighting against systemic racism. If you believe that this system exists, that it's systemically racist, why are you trying to be a part of this system? Why don't you help establish a system outside of the mainstream system in which people can thrive and succeed? I just gave you a plan. I just laid it out. You have enough money where you can employ some of these felons. You can pay for some of these felons to get hard skills that will enable them to start their own businesses. Because like I said, if you don't change the underlying behavior, it's nothing gonna change. And this especially applies to Michael Bloomberg. We know he don't give a damn. We know he don't care. This dude's worth like, what, 40, 50, 60 billion dollars? So we know he don't care. And we know he has way more than enough money to truly make a difference. But all these people care about is power. They're trying to use social justice as just a way to obtain more power. That's the only thing this is about. That's all this is about. It's just obtaining power. And it is really sad because they try to hide behind good intentions. But somebody who is like me and, you know, the people that watch my channel, we can see through stuff like that. We can see what you're really trying to do and what the real intent is. And again, I make these videos about LeBron because he has enough resources and connections to really make a real difference. But the problem is that they're so stuck on this Democrat plantation, and that they are actively trying to recruit more people to stay on this Democrat plantation. You're never gonna get anywhere. Why do these people never think about leaving the Democrat plantation? Why is that never a thought? You're trying to actively recruit people to vote for the architect of the crime bill and for a prosecutor in the liberal state of California who locked up thousands of nonviolent drug offenders. Thousands. And Trump helped undo that in 2019 with his criminal justice reform. President Trump has already shown a willingness to work on these type of issues. Why don't you work with President Trump on this? I don't understand. He's the person that's in power right now. But instead, you would rather work with the Democrats, the same people who helped set up this system, and then try to act like, oh, I'm trying to fight against it. No, you fake. You being fake. And I can see right through it. It's nothing but fakeness coming from LeBron, man. And I'm just really disappointed because he has so much power, but he wields this power so irresponsibly that he's really hurting. He's not helping. And I wish somebody, real leader, a real activist in the black community would stand up to people like LeBron James and say, listen, man, you're not doing this the right way. But we got to get down. And the first step means leaving the Democrat plantation. So let me know what you guys think about this. Is this illegal? Right? Like, do you think that LeBron James is actually trying to do some good? Like, what's going on with this, guys? And do you think it will make a difference in the election? Let me know in the comment section. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.